Hello, my name is Alfonso Ashworth, and I'm going to give you a few tips today on how to properly set up and photograph fireworks. Of course, it's that time of year, the cookouts, the fireworks. A lot of people are going to be doing their home fireworks and maybe even visiting their community fireworks shows. One of the biggest issues is getting location. If you're not in a great location, it's hard to really get some really good shots that are very exciting when it comes to your fireworks. So scout out your location prior to the event. Most of the time, these events, if it's a public event, it's going to be very crowded, and you're going to have a lot of people trying to cram pack into this one small area to see this wonderful event. So make sure that you scout your location out and make sure that you are legal and not trespassing as well. I would hate for you to get interrupted and be escorted away. But with that being said, one of the keys is to having a great tripod, have a cable release or something that you can trigger that release without touching the camera. And there's a couple of other things that you would need. If you're using a digital SLR, know the feature on your camera called bulb. It normally has a B, and it normally is not located easily unless you're familiar with shooting in the manual mode. Next, once you get your location and you scout that out and you get your tripod and get everything set up and get ready, make sure that you have something great in your foreground or background. Fireworks are pretty boring unless you have something really cool in the foreground or the background of your shot. So that means that you're going to have to do something that a lot of people avoid doing, and that's do timed exposures. Now, of course, I've talked about this before, and we've taken outings and went out on location to show people how to do timed exposures. And if you're not that familiar with timed exposures, you can, of course, visit my website, and there are some tips there. But with that being said, once you get that set up, you get your timed exposure, you're going to have to almost guess how long to leave that shutter open. And there's a nice little trick that I teach, and I'm going to show you and demonstrate this with a video on this as well. But it's once the shutter is open, you can use something to block the lens until you're ready to make your exposure. What I mean is if your total time, say it's 30 seconds on your exposure time, you may do it in increments of 5 seconds. Then you block the lens until the next exposure. So each time new fireworks are displayed, you can actually remove whatever's blocking the lens, get that exposure, and then block the lens again. And it's just layering shot on top of shots. So basically you're doing multiple exposures on one frame is what you're doing. So with that, I hope that this little tip will help you and help you get some really cool fireworks shots. And if so, post them and share them with your friends. And maybe, just maybe, you may get that shot that everyone wants to buy. Thank you. I'm Alfonso Ashworth. I teach a course called Light Vision Art. Hello again. My name is Alfonso Ashworth, and I teach a course called Light Vision Art. Today we're going to give you a small video tip on how to properly shoot fireworks. Now, of course, you will need some things to make this happen. One of the things you need is a great tripod, one that will allow you to position your camera in three-dimensional space so that you're able to tilt, shift, and turn. Another thing you will need is a cable release, something that will allow you to be hands-free so that you're not touching that camera during the exposure time. Thirdly, you need a camera that will allow you to manually set your exposure. Now, there's a nice feature on your camera called bulb. Now, on some cameras it's on a dial, it may be on a button, but whatever the case, it's part of your shutter speed. So locate that and turn it to bulb. Put your lens on manual focus because you're going to focus to infinity, which means that you're focused on a point, and that in itself will allow you to have sharp images. And as I said earlier, you need a great object in the foreground or the background. It may be people, it may be a bridge or buildings, whatever the case, it's going to be part of your exposure. So calculate your exposure. Now, whatever that is for your foreground and background, you may have to experiment with that, but let's say it's 30 seconds. So over 30 seconds, I'm going to press my shutter release, lock my shutter open, and then I'm able to cover up the lens. Now, while I'm doing this, no light is getting to my lens, but each time that I do this, I'm making an exposure. Then when I cover it up, it no longer is exposing. Say, for instance, the fireworks are happening. I make my exposure for the fireworks, then I cover up. Either case, I'm controlling the time and I'm controlling the exposure. Now, the next fireworks may not happen for several minutes, but in that case, when they do, I remove, make my exposure, and as I'm doing this, each time I'm layering each firework exposure on top of another. And as you can see, once I do this, the exposure is over and I'm ready to now see my work of art. I hope that this tip helps along with the other information that I provide. If you want to visit my website for other tips, you can go to http://alfonsoashworth.com, or you can visit my Light Vision Art page, which is lightvisionart.simdif.com. So thank you very much. Happy shooting.